What is up, everybody? And in today's video, we're gonna be doing. I feel like I do that every time I do these introductions. But we're going to be doing a little bit of a different review on a master's double that I was actually coaching in person. Stroke seat is actually my mother-in-law, Liz, and then bow seat is just they're okay with me sharing the footage, but they've just asked that I don't use their name, so they will be called bow seat. And anyways, we're going to be thought I'd try and why not a little bit of a different style. Maybe make some content that's a bit more relatable to some people. The cool thing is that the technical changes that masters are working on, the same kind of technical changes that elite crews are as well. So it's always fun to kind of see the similarities and the same approaches, just done to different levels. But anyways, so to jump straight to the video, what we ultimately were working with Liz and bow seat on, it's gonna be weird calling them bow seat the whole video, but I appreciate them being open to sharing it nonetheless. But the first thing, basically the catch. So how they're putting in the blades and how they're connecting at full slide. I think they're doing, I would say pretty good job during the drive and applying force, and also, through the finish. I think they were pretty clean. Like the blade work at the finish, sometimes it would come out on one side or the other, but generally a nice clean finish. And then I think timing off of the finish was pretty decent as well. But where I saw their room for improvement was just how they were putting the blades into the water and how they were getting connection. So what we did is a couple drills that I'm going to run you through that you can use and take into your rowing. It's kind of my favorite way, our favorite way to teach the catch and to approach the catch. And there's a few different ways you can go about approaching the catch. You can basically row the blade in, or you can back it in, and both can work. Both have been shown to work. I just think the backing in method is more coachable. So the problem with Liz and bow seat is they are coming out to the catch. They're at full slide. They get to full slide here, and then when they go to drive, they basically pull. They bring the blade in by opening their back or driving back with the seat before the spoon is locked in. So what we want to do is just practice timing that as soon as they are at the catch, their blade is locked in the water, and then they don't drive back until that spoon is locked. So we can just see here, using Liz as a kind of example. You see Liz is at full side here, full length. Pretty strong position, sitting up nice and tall, good compression with the seat. We want them to get locked in there, but because they kind of open up, they only really connected to the water when they've drove whatever, a third of their drive, and kind of opened up their back a little bit. Now, bow seat does this a little bit better. But what bow seat we worked on was just their lunging going into the catch. So you can see good, strong position here, nice relaxation. But as they came into the front, just a bit of a dip here. And then that meant, as when you're coming to the catch, what you want to do is have your hands go up to the sky so that your blades can go into the water. But if you're trying to do this up and down motion while your shoulders are dipping down, it's very hard. They kind of counteract each other, and as a result, the blade ends up just staying in the same position. So they do that. They've learned how to have a kind of close placement while doing that dip and lift, but it could be better. So obviously as well, like for some crews, the simplest fixes can be carrying your hands lower and squaring up a little bit earlier. But I just thought for these guys, the focus could just be in the actual specifics of how they place. And I think if they improved their placement and their connection, this is where it can be very different person to person. It's not necessarily, there's all these methods, but it's kind of knowing where to start. But if I was thinking if they could get more grip and connection here at the front, that they were going to get more speed off the back, which means more balance, which would then help the lower hands and help the squaring. But anyways, we stopped and we did a drill here. So I've just mashed together all the clips. This is me talking. So the drill we wanted to do was, I'm just going to pause it. The drill we wanted to do was basically called slap catches, but I don't actually like the name slap catches because it implies that there's aggression and you want to make a slapping noise when you place the blade. But what slap catches are is basically you do a roll up, and for those that don't know what a roll up is, you maybe have a different word for it. It's you sit still, you tap your hands down, you feather the blade, you roll up to the catch, you square the blade, and then you lift as if you're going to place the blades, and then you don't take a stroke and you just stop there and then reset. Well, normally you reset, you can then go into a full stroke, but it's kind of trying to do a full recovery cycle while the boat's still. Slap catches, or what I prefer to call feathered catches, just because I don't like the use of the word slap. It is doing that same thing, but you keep the blade feathered the whole time. And for Liz, what we were working on here was the timing of the lift. So first off, just to summarize what we had to ingrain first was Liz was doing it relatively quickly, so a little bit too rushed at the start. So I think that was the call there, was just to slow it down a little bit. So she did it better there. The previous clip, she was a bit rushed. Actually, let's go back just to cover that example. Actually, never mind. I can't be arsed finding it again. So as you can see here, all we do is we roll forward, take the blade out, turn it feathered, roll forward into the catch, and then what we're trying to do is time that lift of the hands with that last turn of the seat. So at the catch, you do not want to be spending any time at full slide with your blade above the water. If you want to kind of think about it like there's a photographer on the bank who's trying to get a photo of you at full slide with your blades squared and out of the water, this is where we talk a lot about how the catch should be quick, but it's not. You shouldn't be quick to arrive to the catch and quick to drive the blade in. The quickness comes from as soon as you're at the catch, you're lifting your hands. It's that no delay in the lift as soon as you're there. And I like slap catch because, oh, wrong. This is the thing I use when I do the Instagram reels. What we want here is for as soon as you are, so the feathered catches allow you to practice getting to the front and timing that lift of the hands with the last turn of the seat. And normally what happens is people roll forward to the catch, the wheels on the seat stop. They go, oh, I'm at the catch. Okay, now I lift the blade, now I lift my hands. And feathered catches are just a really good way to practice that kind of timing, especially in a double, when you can be really stable with it. So the other thing, Liz, we changed as she went on was just carrying that left hand lower, so it shouldn't be feathered the whole way to the catch. But you can see here, this was a better one compared to her first ones. I'll actually go. So her first one was quite rushed, and then you could see when she would get to the front, there'd be that kind of delay. She'd get to the front and then lift the hands like that. And again, she was carrying her blades too close to the water so that you can't see the lift as much, but you could see that kind of intent to lift the hands was just, again, this is it when she wasn't doing it as well. Slide to the front, and then this is what people do in the boat. They slide to the front. Okay, I'm at the catch. Right, now I lift my hands. So again, as the drill kind of progressed, what we got better at was, again, still needing that left hand to be a little bit lower so the blade's above the water. But if we look at the right, that timing was much better. And it's kind of almost like you're lifting your hand kind of in like an upward direction, like you're kind of punching again, wrong word, but you're lifting out. It's not so much the straight, you're going straight flat and then it's a direct uplift. It's almost kind of like the hypotenuse in high school algebra. Does anybody remember that? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Pythagoras. Shout out Pythagoras. But you can see here much better with that kind of timing and the lift here. It's kind of you can see it almost looks like she's lifting as she's moving forward there. And still, I would say still could be a little earlier with that lift. But you can see there's much less delay there. As soon as she's at the catch, she's lifting. One other thing, actually, I'm only noticing now watching the footage. And again, you don't want to do too much with this stuff, but there's just a bit of a kind of like throw out. You can see there's a bit of tension and how Liz is like lifting the blade, which is actually something we'll get to later. The lighting wasn't right there. But yeah, anyways, the first thing with this stuff is like just getting the mechanics right, getting the actual movements right and the timing right, and then you can bring in the relaxation. But we can see here much better timing of the lift, and you can kind of see that raise of the arms is only when she's just about to get to full slide. So yeah, much better here. So now the next progression is doing the same idea, but basically just a roll up, but you're trying to bring in that timing of the lift of the hands with the kind of last turn of the seat. It's like, again, that if you think about that the wheel on your seat, that last turn, just before it gets to there, that's when you lift. It's kind of timing it as you're moving forward. So what we did is bringing in the square normally makes things a little bit harder. And what happens is you go back to that kind of, okay, I only lift once I'm at full. It's easy to go back into that old habit of, okay, I'm at the catch, now I lift. You can see here, as soon as we bring back in the square, it's arrive, hang around, oh yeah, I'm at the catch, and then lift. And a lot of the time, the mistake people will make is they're trying to avoid backsplash when they do this. And in theory, you actually shouldn't get backsplash when you do this stationary. But when the boat's moving, having a straight up and down lift, it's impossible to not have backsplash when the boat and the water is running underneath you. Anyways, as we progressed... Yeah, as we progressed, we'll just kind of watch this in live time because I can't be arsed scrolling around. Again, just a bit more intentional there with the lift, but the timing was still late. Again, it's not about being more aggressive, it's just about the timing of it. But you can see there, that's a good example of kind of when you actually start to do the right thing, is you'll start to notice that you'll get more backsplash. Or you'll kind of clip the water more on the way going forward. So, for example, Liz here, squaring a bit earlier, but she's now thinking about lifting as she's going forward and kind of having that sort of like upward movement with the hands where you're raising them out, you're not going like that. And with that, you will start to clip the water a little bit early. And of course, that's not what you want necessarily, but it is a symptom of you making the change. And making changes normally doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel amazing. It's just, if it feels the same way that it's always felt, then you're probably not changing anything. So again, this is just a symptom that you're going about it in the right way. And while it's not necessarily what you want, it's much closer to the end goal. And you can see here, just ignoring the blades, you can see here there's less of that pause when she gets to that catch. There's more timing there. And still, honestly, still a bit of kind of hanging around where she's at full slide and then lifts. So let's keep watching. Much better. That was a much better one. Better earlier squaring as well here, which helps. So again, we weren't even really talking about early squaring. She was just doing it kind of intuitively to help with the prep. But we can see body set here, body still, And that lift process just starts a little bit earlier on the way going forward, and the hands need to start rising a little bit earlier. The only mistake now is that Liz started to lift with the shoulders a little bit too much. But again, you don't want to focus on you want to focus on one or two areas at a time. Now on to bow seat. So again, we didn't quite nail it, but that's fine. What we were doing was making a change and ingraining the kind of fundamentals into the stroke so you can bring it into normal rowing. We ran through the same thing again with bow seat here. And again, first mistake I would say is just a little bit too rushed coming out of the blades. When you do this drill, really exaggerate it and slow it down. And again, you can see a little bit that timing of arrive and then lift. Bow seat was quicker at it than Liz, but you can see still a bit of a delay here. Bow seat's at the catch, and then the kind of lift starts there. You want to time it where as soon as you're here, your blades are in the water. And again, it's slightly made harder by the fact that bow seat has just a bit of a dip with the chest going down, which again means the hands go down while you're trying to get the blades to go in that direction. So again, doing it again. A little bit too hesitant with it. Again, you need to really kind of time that and change the way that you think about the catch. It needs to feel like it's too early if you're going to make this change. A little bit better there. That was much better. So again, doing it again. A little bit too hesitant with it. Again, you need to really kind of time that and change the way that you think about the catch. It needs to feel like it's too early if you're going to make this change. A little bit better there. That was much better. So we can see rolling. And I think that right blade is actually much better. That left blade is just a little bit too high. But you can see here, I get a good shot of it there. She's sliding forward, and as she's still sliding forward, that kind of hand, it's very subtle as well. I know I draw the arrow friggin' like that, but it's a very subtle kind of like small lift out with the hands. But much better there. You can see that, and almost like that blade is still moving forward as she's sliding. There's actually a good contrast here between getting the right blade right and getting the left blade wrong. You can just see here that lift, the blade's still moving forward, whereas the left, it's much more like out and then straight down. That straight up and down lift. Yeah, good example there. So we didn't film as much of the drills with bow seat, but still ran through the same progression. We went into the squaring here. This was the first time doing the squaring. And just doing this drill a tiny bit, you can really slow it down. Like, don't be afraid to slow this drill down and be a bit more kind of exaggerated with it. Bow seat, you can see squaring nicely here, a bit more still with the body, but we still have that. You arrive at the catch. Oh, okay, I'm at the catch. Now I lift my hands. Again, you'd want that lift to be started like now, sending those blades towards the water rather than just hanging around. Okay, I'm at the catch. And part of why you don't want to hang around at the catch is just it's the slowest point of the stroke. You've got all your weight on the stern, and it's not a time when you want to be hanging around. And another minor note for anybody that struggled with this, just bow seat here, big gap between the blade and the water. That just means there's so much more movement required to lift the blade in. So if you're struggling with this, another thing you can think about is when you're going forward, once you squared, not before you squared, you can carry your hands rather than down low, just carry them a little higher as long as they are squared. So a few problems with this one. I actually think this would have been a really good catch, but bow seat dipped the shoulders down and then squared quite late with the blades. Subtle body movement down, but the kind of late squaring, it's quite hard to get that catch right. But much closer, much closer. Better. Again, you can see here a little bit of the kind of backsplash come in, but not enough. You can see there's a bit of that placement on the way going forward, but still, we basically just don't want any time when you're here. You shouldn't see the seat stop moving before the blades are in. Much better though. That timing is much better. If we watch that right blade. Right blade timing is a lot better than the left for sure. Definitely getting there. That was the best one. Much better. Still a bit of a kind of lunge, and this is the thing with this drill, sometimes because you're thinking about almost pushing the blade in, sometimes people get a bit stabby with their shoulders and they kind of like use the shoulder lunge to kind of like punch the blade in. So something else to bear in mind, but again, one thing at a time here as I throw you 17 things all at once. But you can see that timing there much better. And as a result, you can see the first time that people do this, they are a little bit surprised with how it feels. And you can notice bow seat's blade here on the left, slightly going off of the square onto the feather. And that's fine. Again, it's just a symptom of making the change, but much better with the timing. Much less time hanging around. I would say more stillness with the body though. You want to get that backsplash from the seat moving forward, not from your shoulders moving forward. You think it's that the seat is still sliding as you're lifting and you're not getting that reach from the shoulders. There's us cracking a joke. I don't know. They're probably just laughing, a pity laugh at one of my shit jokes. Okay, that was not as good. Looks like they're having too much fun. So here is one of the best ones. I'll even do it with a noise on so you can hear. Yeah. Much better, like kind of, it's almost like a sort of plop noise that you're looking to get. But yeah, as we see here, there's very little delay with being at full slide and the blade being lifted. And as a result, you kind of have the blade going into the water in that direction. And yes, in theory, when the boat's still, you're going to have less backsplash. But for the purpose of this drill, you can kind of almost like exaggerate a bit of the backsplash because that's more the feeling of what you're going to get when the boat is moving. But still here, what would make it a lot better is if there was just, you can see this angle that she has here. It just slightly changes as she goes down there, and there's just a bit of a lunge there with the body. But much nicer. That lock feeling is really nice when you get that in the boat. It just feels so good. And you can also see another point here, kind of moving on. Ignore this if you're wanting to stay focused on this, but you get an air pocket forming on the front of the spoon when you do this. And this is where patience comes in, where you want to let that pocket fill back up before you push. But when you get that right, it just feels really locked. Like if bow seat did this at rate 32, locked in like that and pushed, the boat is going to fly. So they're starting to get it here. And it's easy to do it when you're stationary and the other person's holding the balance. But yeah, I think we can. So now we go back into normal rowing, and what happens is people don't like, they actually are more likely to do this right at the start, but it feels like shit when you do this. Not gonna lie. But you can see here, because they're now playing around with how they lift the blades, and they had this drill where they're practicing lifting on the way going forwards and lifting earlier while they're squared. The side effect is you're just going to be clipping the water a lot more. What the fuck? You're just going to be clipping the water a lot more. You can see both of them doing it here. And honestly, be okay with that. It's not what you want, but again, it's just a sign that you're going about placing in the right way. And because they clipped a little bit earlier, it then gets harder to place in the right way. You can see they kind of clip the water and it feels like shit. But look, this is what you want. You're making changes. It should be hard. It should feel uncomfortable. As long as you're doing the right thing, of course. But it's rare that you do something that's bad for your rowing that's also uncomfortable. We normally try and search for what's comfortable, which isn't actually going to get you any faster. Yeah, the placement does slowly start to get there. You can see that right blade here. We can't quite on Liz's right blade. There, a very nice kind of timing of the blade, a bit of backsplash on the spoon, slides forward, gets a bit of grip. The left blade comes in a little bit, but that's fine. What you'll often notice as well is whichever side the balance is down to will have a better catch because that blade is closer to the water. So again, another reason to make sure you try and, after the square, carry your blades closer to the water. Yes, as they continue, so again, it's a kind of weird change that could increase tension. So Liz here was just tensing up a little bit, and you can see she's trying to square early with the blades. But part of the pros and cons of croakers, some people prefer it. I think they've kind of changed their collar design, is that you can be somewhat in between a feather and a square. I don't like that because it forces you to kind of create a bit of tension in your forearm. But Liz here, good example, really good example, I would say there, of just being of placing and getting that backsplash, still hanging around a little bit, but the main thing is they're not pushing before they're connected here. You can see Liz is staying in this fully compressed position, and it's not only until the blade is in the water that she really starts to push. So the timing could have been better, but the patience to drive before she pushes, or the patience to drive before she's connected, is much better there. You can see at the start, she's at full slide here, and then the blade's probably connected there, and she's lost very, very little length. And you can see it's a much better position to push out of, rather than kind of being, she was getting like here before she was connected. So starting to get there, still a bit kind of inconsistent, but that's fine. You literally just need to get 1 in 100, then 1 in 10, and so on and so on. So again, symptom of change, squaring earlier, trying to lift earlier, still too late here, still hanging around too much of the catch. But again, the blades are clipping in. You can see that right blade looking for the right idea. But this is kind of what it looks like when you're trying to make a change. A bit more clipping, a bit more tension, that's fine. Try and get the mechanics right. There was a good one from bow seat. Again, probably too much with the backsplash. You can see they start clipping a bit earlier. You want to try and leave that, but this is just where the timing and acceleration comes. But if we look at bow seat, there is almost no time where she is at full slide and the blade's above the water. So that timing is getting much, much better there. If they were just to remove the kind of clips, remove that, and then place there and get that same idea, much, much better. And you can see full slide here, the blade's in, and they've lost much less length. And as we progress here, the wind died down a little bit. You can see massive improvement here. When they got out of the headwind, they were able to relax a little bit more and focus more on their placement. But you can see here like really good example from Liz of, as soon as she's at the catch, she's starting to lift. Still could be a little bit earlier. Again, much, much better lifting with the blade there. You can see still, again, could be earlier, but connected there before she's pushing. And again, bow seat as well. much better here as they start to kind of get into the calmer water. See that backsplash starting to form on the back of the spoon. That right blade, Bausi doing a good job there on the right. Liz doing a good job there on the left. Now, one other point, which we'll kind of get to in this, is how they lift. And so we see here Bausi is, again, still dipping with the chest. They're still managing to get the blade in the right direction, but just a bit of a dip there. And then Liz just opening a little bit too much with the back as she drives. But as I said, it's not what we're focusing on here, but just good to cover it, I know, while we're on this video, because you guys can go back and watch it. But much nicer. You can see the boat is just flowing much better connection through the finish. It just looks easier off of the release. So now on to the second point. Relax. Holy shit, 31 minutes. I have been waffling. The second point. So the next thing you can do is, once you get the lift right, the timing right, the idea of backing the blade in, the idea of lifting your hands as you're moving forward, because obviously that's something that creates resistance when you back the blade in. The key is, can you do this while, or the key to not reducing boat speed is doing this while you're relaxed and doing this loose. And there's no efficient way to put the blade into the water without disrupting the run of the boat. It's kind of choosing between one option or the other. Option one is you can move your blade in with the water and go with the direction of the water, and then you don't create a backsplash. But what that means is you're opening or you're pushing before you're connected. You can do this by being looser and sorry, people are beeping their horns outside because there's these lights that people always stop at. But you can do that by being loose and gentle. I think it's much harder to do. Or you can do it the other way, this way, where you back the blade in, wait until you're connected, and then push. The reason I like this, it's easier to coach, it's easier to teach, but you're creating resistance with a very, very light oar versus creating resistance with your body where you push before you're connected. So this way allows you to get connection and then push and just create a bit of resistance with the blade. The way that you can get more relaxed is, there's many ways obviously, but just a drill I really like that we get people to use all the time is flat hand taps. So sit at the catch, make your hands flat. It's pretty obvious, I think. But all you're going to do is just practice going up and down with the hands. Nice and loose. Reducing tension in your face, in your neck, relaxing, and thinking about just letting gravity drop the blade in. And what you're trying to do is ingrain what this feels like, what this sounds like, so that when you bring your fingers back around the oar, you ideally have the same motion. It's the same lift, it's the same feeling. And as soon as you get your fingers back around the oar, you're going to bring in a bit of tension, you're going to bring in a bit of force. So try and find that same motion you had when your hands were flat. Then the next stage is bring in this loose lift with the timing of the placement. So what we did here is just to try and bring in that idea of the lift. Oh, what's going on? Why is it like in slow motion? We're trying to do what we were doing before, basically, but do it with that loose lift. Loose, 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 and drop. Trying to get that timing, trying to get that looseness. Better. You can see here Liz is doing a much better job at just dropping the blade in slowly and not forcing anything. You can see it just looks much more loose when the blade goes into the water, much more gentle, and that is because she's more relaxed. Here's probably one of the best catches I saw Liz do. Really good timing, really good relaxation. A little bit too rushed on that one. Getting better. Definitely getting better. Here's probably the best catch I saw Liz do. Really good. You can see that kind of lift there. So super loose. Shoulders are lower now. You can see it even just doing this drill. But as she approaches, there's no time. That's actually a perfect one on this left blade here. You can see there's no hanging around. As soon as she is at full slide, the blades are making their way towards the water. There's no delay, and it's done while being very loose as well. And you can see there's this tiny, tiny, tiny bit of backsplash because we're still at a high rate. That would go really, really nicely and get a really good connection. So again, starting the same with bow seat, kind of a normal mistake people will make is they bend from the elbows and they kind of pivot from here rather than pivoting from the shoulder. So just something to bear in mind. You want to practice this up and down lift while you're pivoting from your shoulder, not while you're pivoting from your elbow, just because that's what you want to do when you're in the boat. When the boat's moving. Nice flat, loose drop again. Feeling really loose, just enjoying that feeling and how loose that can be. And again, we want to do this same lift when you're at rate 38 and the sprint and the last 250 are the biggest race of your rowing journey. And same again, same process, bringing the fingers back around. Trying to have that same looseness. If you try this, you will notice that it does feel different when you first change. It'll take a bit of work to bring it back in. And here, pretty good one. See really nice timing. Maybe a little bit too rushed going in, which made things harder. You can see now starting to get that timing of no hanging around when they're at the catch there. Both of them have got the catch really, really well when the boat's stationary. It's just the trick is now doing this while the boat's moving underneath you. That same lift, that same upward lift, that motion. Body's looking much more still here as well, which is helping. And yeah, both of them, as soon as they got a good one, both of them were like, oh, can we stop on that? It's like, no, you want to do this until you can do it without even thinking about it. Because if you can't do it consistently when the boat's still, it's going to be much harder to do it while the boat's moving. Just as they rode off, there was a really, really good catch here on the left. And balance was slightly down to left, but again, that's only because they're not carrying their right blade. They're not carrying their hands high enough after they square. But you can see here when the blades are close, much, much better timing at the catch there. Bit of backsplash on the back of the spoon. It's nice and loose as well this time. They're not forcing it in. But we can see, there, connected here. Whereas, at the start of the session, they are connected like there. Where I would say maybe bow seat is a little bit more connected, but Liz definitely, connected here versus being connected there. Now I quite like this angle for filming and for coaching as well, because you can see what's going on directly square onto the blade, but bow seat, you can see that lift here with the hands kind of moving out, and then Liz, you can see there's just a bit of a hang, pause at the catch, and then Liz goes in, whereas bow seat hooks before they push. And then it's coming and going, but here a little bit better with that hook. You can just see bow seat, I would say, is doing a bit of a better job, but still not enough. You still want more of that placement on the way going forward. See, they start to come in with the blade a little bit here. There's a bit of a tailwind pushing them, so it means you're getting thrown a little bit more into the catch. You need more control. It's easier to kind of row the blade in like this when you're in a tailwind. But for sure, getting far more consistent, there with the catch on the right. Again, much better patience to place on the way going forward, wait, and then push. Much, much, much better. This is them towards the end of the session. And yeah, maybe the kind of like last K or so of the session, I would say that they lost it a little bit here in the headwind, and that's fine. You know, it's not just the physical fatigue in sessions like this, it's the mental fatigue. Good thing is they have the footage, they have this review that they can go back and look on, and we spoke about it afterwards, but they knew what they needed to do to get the blade in the right way. It came down to control, timing, and relaxation. But yeah, getting much better grip here. You can see there's much more time to push on the front because they're longer. The placement still could be better, but you know, much, much, much better grip as a whole. Okay, yeah, if you guys like this video, let me know if you want more of these. Obviously, we don't do many of these in-person coaching sessions. Kind of same idea like this review, where we do it, we give people drills and break down concepts, and then they go and do it, and then film it on these GoPros that we send people, and then they send it back. So kind of same gist. The only exception here is I'm doing the filming. But yeah, if you liked it, let me know. And yeah, all the best. Like and subscribe.